Stop. Right now, in this very moment, how many negative thoughts are running through your mind? Maybe you're worried about something that happened yesterday, anxious about tomorrow, or criticizing yourself for something you said or did. What if I told you that ancient Buddhist monks discovered specific mental techniques thousands of years ago that can stop these negative thought patterns almost instantly, and modern neuroscience is now proving they actually work? Stay with me, because by the end of this video, you'll have 5 powerful mind hacks that can transform your relationship with your thoughts forever. Let me start with something that might surprise you. The average person has between 60,000 and 80,000 thoughts per day. That's about one thought every 1.2 seconds during your waking hours. Now here's the really shocking part. Research shows that approximately 80% of those thoughts are negative and 95% are repetitive. Think about that for a moment. Your mind is essentially running the same negative movie over and over again, day after day, and most of us don't even realize it's happening. We're so identified with our thoughts that we believe we are our thoughts. But here's what the Buddha discovered over 2,500 years ago. You are not your thoughts. You are the awareness that observes those thoughts. And once you truly understand this distinction, everything changes. Before we dive into these 5 techniques, I need to explain something crucial about how your mind works. Your brain has what neuroscientists call a negativity bias. This isn't a flaw in your design. It's actually a survival mechanism that kept our ancestors alive. When you're walking through the forest and you hear a rustling in the bushes, your brain immediately assumes the worst-case scenario. It could be the wind, but it could also be a tiger. The ancestors who assumed it was just the wind and were wrong didn't survive to pass on their genes. The ones who assumed danger and were wrong lived to be anxious another day. So your brain is literally wired to look for threats, to focus on what's wrong, to replay embarrassing moments, and to worry about future disasters. This was great for survival in the wild, but in modern life, where most of our threats are psychological rather than physical, this negativity bias causes us tremendous suffering. The Buddha called this constant stream of repetitive, often negative thinking, the monkey mind. Imagine a monkey swinging from branch to branch, never staying still, always restless, always moving. That's what our minds do with thoughts. We swing from one worry to the next, from one regret to another, from one fear to a different fear. And just like a monkey can't help but grab the next branch, we can't help but grab the next thought. Or can we? This is where these 5 Buddhist mind hacks come in. These aren't just philosophical concepts or feel-good ideas. These are practical, testable techniques that have been refined over millennia and are now being validated by modern psychology and neuroscience. The first mind hack is called naming the visitor. This technique comes from the Buddhist practice of mindful awareness, and it's devastatingly simple yet incredibly powerful. When a negative thought arises, instead of getting caught up in it, instead of believing it, instead of arguing with it or trying to push it away, you simply acknowledge it like you would acknowledge a visitor at your door. You give it a name. You say to yourself, silently or out loud, there's an anxious thought, or there's a self-critical thought, or there's a worry thought about the future. Notice the language here. You're not saying, I am anxious or I am worried. You're creating space between you, the awareness, and the thought itself. You're recognizing that this is just a mental event passing through your consciousness, not a fundamental truth about reality or about who you are. Here's why this works on a neurological level. When you name what you're experiencing, you activate the prefrontal cortex, the rational, observing part of your brain. This has been shown in brain imaging studies to actually reduce activity in the amygdala, which is the fear and emotion center of the brain. Psychologists call this affect labeling, and research has demonstrated that it can reduce emotional reactivity by up to 50%. The ancient Buddhists didn't have MRI machines, but they discovered through direct experience that the simple act of naming your mental states creates a powerful shift in your relationship to them. When you name the visitor, you're no longer at its mercy. You're no longer identified with it. You're the one who's aware of it, which means you have a choice about how to respond to it. Let me give you a practical example. Let's say you wake up in the morning and immediately your mind starts racing with thoughts about everything you need to do today. You start feeling overwhelmed. Your chest gets tight. Your breathing becomes shallow. This is the moment where most people just accept this state and carry it with them throughout the day. But if you use the naming the visitor technique, you would pause and say, "There's an overwhelm thought," or "There's anxiety about the day." Immediately, something shifts. You've created a gap between the thinker and the thought, and in that gap, there's freedom. You might still feel some anxiety, but you're no longer completely consumed by it. You're the sky, and the anxiety is just a cloud passing through. The sky is never disturbed by the clouds. It simply allows them to come and go. The second mind hack is what I call the 3-breath reset, and this comes from the Buddhist practice of breath awareness meditation. The breath is always with you. It's happening right now as you watch this video. It's been happening since the moment you were born, and it will continue until the moment you die. The Buddha taught that the breath is like an anchor that can always bring you back to the present moment. And the present moment is the only place where you have any real power. All negative thinking happens in one of two places. Either you're ruminating about the past, replaying conversations, regretting decisions, feeling guilty or ashamed about things you did or didn't do, or you're worrying about the future, imagining all the things that could go wrong, catastrophizing, playing out worst-case scenarios in your mind. But here's the thing. Suffering cannot exist in the pure present moment. It needs time to exist. It needs past or future. When you're fully present, fully here, fully now, negative thoughts lose their grip on you. So here's how you do the 3-breath reset. The moment you notice yourself caught in a negative thought spiral, you stop whatever you're doing, and you take 3 conscious breaths. And I mean really conscious. For the first breath, you breathe in and you say to yourself, "Breathing in, I know I am breathing in." You breathe out and you say, "Breathing out, I know I am breathing out." You give your complete attention to the physical sensation of the breath entering and leaving your body. For the second breath, you breathe in and say, "Breathing in, I calm my body." You breathe out and say, "Breathing out, I relax." You consciously release any tension you're holding. Drop your shoulders, soften your jaw, relax your belly. For the third breath, you breathe in and say, "Breathing in, I arrive in the present moment." You breathe out and say, "Breathing out, I am home." You recognize that right here, right now, in this very moment, you are okay. You are breathing, you are alive. And whatever your mind is telling you about the past or the future, it's not happening right now. This technique is incredibly powerful because it interrupts the thought pattern. Negative thoughts gain their power through momentum. One negative thought leads to another, which leads to another, which leads to another. And before you know it, you're in a full-blown anxiety spiral or depressive episode. The 3-breath reset breaks that momentum. It's like pressing the pause button on your mental movie. And here's what's beautiful about it. You can do this anywhere, anytime. You can do it in a meeting, you can do it in traffic, you can do it lying in bed at 3 in the morning when your mind won't shut up. Your breath is always available to you. It's the most portable, accessible tool you have for managing your mind. The third mind hack is called reversing the arrows, and this comes from a profound teaching in Buddhism about the nature of suffering. The Buddha taught that when we're struck by an arrow, that's the first arrow. That's the actual painful event or circumstance in our lives. But then we shoot ourselves with a second arrow, which is our reaction to the first arrow. This second arrow is our resistance, our judgment, our story about what happened. And often the second arrow causes far more suffering than the first. Let me give you an example. You make a mistake at work. That's the first arrow. It happened. It's done. But then your mind starts going, "I'm so stupid, I always mess things up. Everyone probably thinks I'm incompetent. I'm going to get fired. I'm a failure." Those are all second arrows, and they cause way more pain than the original mistake. Here's how you use the reversing the arrows technique. When something goes wrong or when you catch yourself in negative thinking, you ask yourself, what's the first arrow here? What actually happened? You separate the facts from your interpretation. Then you ask, what are the second arrows I'm shooting at myself? What stories am I telling myself about what happened? And here's the key. You recognize that while you may not have control over the first arrow, you have complete control over whether you shoot the second arrow. You can choose to not add extra suffering on top of the original difficulty. This doesn't mean you become passive or that you don't learn from your mistakes. It means you respond to life's challenges with wisdom and compassion, rather than with self-punishment and catastrophizing. A lot of people think that being hard on themselves is what motivates them to do better. They think self-criticism is necessary for improvement. But research actually shows the opposite. Studies on self-compassion by researchers like Kristin Neff have demonstrated that people who are kind to themselves when they fail are actually more motivated to improve, more resilient in the face of setbacks, and less anxious and depressed than people who engage in harsh self-criticism. The Buddha understood this thousands of years ago. He taught that we should treat ourselves with the same kindness and understanding we would offer to a good friend. When you stop shooting yourself with second arrows, you free up so much energy and mental space that was previously devoted to self-punishment and worry. That energy can then be directed toward actually solving problems and living your life. The fourth mind hack is what I call the space of non-engagement, and this is based on a core principle in Buddhist psychology. You don't have to believe everything you think. In fact, most of your thoughts are not true. They're just mental formations, habits, conditioned responses based on your past experiences, your cultural programming, your fears, your traumas. But we treat our thoughts as if they're facts. We believe them without question. The Buddha taught a practice where you observe your thoughts without engaging with them, without getting involved in their content, without believing them or disbelieving them. You just watch them arise and pass away like clouds in the sky or like waves in the ocean. Here's how you practice the space of non-engagement. When a negative thought arises, instead of immediately reacting to it, instead of arguing with it or trying to analyze it or figure out if it's true, you simply observe it with curiosity and detachment. You might even imagine your thoughts as leaves floating down a stream. You're standing on the bank watching them float by. Some leaves are big, some are small. Some move fast, some move slow. But you don't jump into the stream to grab them. You don't try to hold on to them or push them away. You just watch, you let them come and you let them go. This is incredibly liberating because you realize that you don't have to engage with every thought that shows up in your mind. You can let thoughts pass through without giving them your energy and attention. Most people are constantly in a war with their thoughts. They're trying to think positive, trying to stop thinking about certain things, trying to convince themselves of different beliefs. This takes enormous energy and usually doesn't work very well because the more you try to not think about something, the more you think about it. It's like the old game, don't think about a pink elephant. What's the first thing that pops into your mind? A pink elephant. The Buddha taught a different approach. Instead of fighting with your thoughts, you simply stop feeding them with your attention and belief. A thought without your engagement is like a fire without fuel. It naturally dies out on its own. You don't have to do anything except not engage. This is the space of non-engagement. It's a space of freedom where thoughts can arise without controlling you, without defining you, without dictating your emotions and actions. The fifth and final mind hack is called the gratitude interrupt, and this is based on the Buddhist practice of cultivating wholesome mental states. The Buddha taught that the mind is like a garden. If you don't plant good seeds, weeds will grow on their own. Negativity is the default state because of our evolutionary negativity bias. If you want to cultivate positive mental states, you have to actively plant and water those seeds. Gratitude is one of the most powerful positive mental states you can cultivate. Research in positive psychology has shown that practicing gratitude can significantly reduce depression and anxiety, increase happiness and life satisfaction, improve relationships, and even boost physical health. But here's how we're going to use it as a mind hack for stopping negative thoughts. The gratitude interrupt works like this. The moment you catch yourself in a negative thought pattern, you interrupt it by immediately bringing to mind 3 things you're grateful for right now in this moment. And this is key. They have to be specific and immediate. You can't just think, I'm grateful for my family in an abstract way. You have to really feel it. You might think, I'm grateful for the warmth of the sun coming through the window right now. I'm grateful that my body is healthy and I can take a deep breath. I'm grateful for the cup of coffee I had this morning that tasted really good. The more specific and sensory you can make it, the better. What this does is it literally shifts your brain chemistry. Gratitude activates the release of dopamine and serotonin, the feel-good neurotransmitters. It also activates the parasympathetic nervous system, which is your rest and digest mode, calming down the fight or flight response that gets triggered by negative thinking. But there's something even deeper happening here from a Buddhist perspective. When you practice gratitude, you're training your mind to look for what's right, what's working, what's good, instead of constantly scanning for problems and threats. You're reconditioning your negativity bias. You're teaching your monkey mind to swing toward positive branches instead of negative ones. This doesn't happen overnight. It's a practice. The Buddha emphasized that the mind is trainable. Just like you can train your body by going to the gym, you can train your mind through repeated practice. Every time you use the gratitude interrupt, you're strengthening the neural pathways associated with positive thinking. You're making it easier for your brain to naturally move in that direction. Now, I want to address something important before we wrap up. Some people might hear these techniques and think they sound too simple or too easy. They might think, my problems are serious, my anxiety is real, my depression is real. How can just naming my thoughts or taking 3 breaths or practicing gratitude actually help? And I want to validate that concern. If you're dealing with clinical depression, severe anxiety, trauma, or other serious mental health issues, these techniques should be used as part of a comprehensive approach that might include therapy, medication, and other interventions. These are not magic pills. They're not going to instantly solve all your problems. But here's what they will do. They will give you tools to work with your mind in a different way. They will create moments of space and freedom where before there was only automatic reactivity. They will help you build a different relationship with your thoughts where you're no longer at their mercy. The Buddha's teaching on suffering is actually incredibly hopeful. He didn't say life is suffering and there's nothing you can do about it. He said there is suffering, there is a cause of suffering, there is an end to suffering, and there is a path to the end of suffering. These 5 mind hacks are part of that path. They're practical tools that have been tested by millions of practitioners over thousands of years. And now modern science is confirming what those practitioners discovered through direct experience. These techniques actually work. They change your brain, they reduce suffering, they increase well-being. But they only work if you actually use them. You can't just intellectually understand them. You have to practice them. You have to make them part of your daily life. So here's what I want you to do. Don't try to use all 5 techniques at once. That's overwhelming. Pick one. Maybe pick the one that resonated with you most while watching this video. For the next week, commit to practicing that one technique every single time you notice yourself caught in negative thinking. Set a reminder on your phone if you need to. Put a note on your mirror. Do whatever it takes to remember to practice. And here's what you'll notice. At first, you'll catch yourself in negative thinking only after you've already been spiraling for a while. That's normal. But gradually, you'll start catching yourself sooner. You'll notice the negative thoughts arising earlier and earlier in the process. And eventually, you'll get so good at it that you'll be able to interrupt the negative thought pattern almost immediately, before it gains any momentum. This is the freedom the Buddha was pointing to. This is what these mind hacks can give you. Let me leave you with one final thought. There's a famous Zen story about 2 monks walking along a muddy road. They come across a beautiful woman in an expensive kimono who can't cross the mud without ruining her clothes. Without saying a word, the older monk picks her up, carries her across the mud, and sets her down on the other side. The 2 monks continue walking in silence. Hours later, the younger monk can't contain himself anymore. He says, "How could you touch that woman? You know we've taken vows, we're not supposed to have any contact with women." The older monk looks at him and says, "I set her down hours ago. Why are you still carrying her?" This story perfectly illustrates what we do with our negative thoughts. Something happens, the moment passes, but we continue carrying it in our minds for hours, days, sometimes years. These 5 mind hacks are about learning to set things down, learning to let go, learning to return to the present moment where life is actually happening. Your negative thoughts don't have to control you anymore. You have the power to stop them, to see through them, to let them go. That power has been within you all along. These techniques are just helping you remember how to access it. Use them, practice them, and watch your life transform.